Namaskar and welcome to RIG History Extended, where we bring to life the most defining moments of our past. Today we journey back to the year 1965, a year etched in India's memory not for what was lost, but for what was valiantly defended. This episode is a tribute to the courage, sacrifice, and strategic brilliance of our soldiers during the Indo-Pak War of 1965. From the blood-soaked fields of Asal Uttar to the towering resolve at Lahore's gates, this is not just a history lesson, it's the story of India standing tall against aggression, united in purpose and pride. Stay with us as we explore this war not merely through battles but through the spirit of a nation that refused to be cowed down. Introduction: A War for Sovereignty and Honor. The Indo-Pak War of 1965 was a decisive moment for India, a young nation defending its sovereignty against a calculated Pakistani offensive. It was the largest conflict between the two nations since 1947, involving massive tank battles, aerial dogfights, and full-scale ground operations. Though the war lasted just 17 days, it inflicted thousands of casualties and exposed the stark military and ideological differences between the two countries. India emerged not only with its territorial integrity intact, but with national pride reinforced by the valor of its soldiers. The war showcased India's ability to repel aggression, cross into enemy territory, and fight with discipline and honor. It became a turning point in Indian history, restoring faith in its military following the 1962 China debacle. This war wasn't just about land, it was about honor, unity, and the resolve to defend what was rightfully ours. The Kashmir dispute, root of the conflict. The origins of the 1965 war lie in the unresolved Kashmir conflict that followed partition in 1947. Despite its Muslim majority population, the princely state of Jammu and Kashmir legally acceded to India in 1947, triggering Pakistan's first invasion. The 1947-48 war ended in a ceasefire with Kashmir divided between the two nations, but tensions never truly eased. Pakistan viewed the Kashmir issue as unfinished business and remained determined to forcibly change the status quo. The line of control became a tensed, militarized border with regular skirmishes and political hostility brewing on both sides. While India saw Kashmir's ascension as final, Pakistan saw opportunity in stirring dissent and exploiting perceived local discontent. This enduring dispute formed the backdrop to Pakistan's ambitious plan in 1965 to provoke an uprising and capture Kashmir. Pakistan's miscalculation and Ayub Khan's overconfidence. By the early 1960s, Pakistan's leadership, particularly President Ayub Khan, believed India was militarily weak and politically fragile. The 1962 war with China and internal unrest had, in their view, left India vulnerable to external pressure. Ayub Khan reportedly declared that Hindu morale would not stand more than a couple of hard blows, grossly underestimating India's resolve. Pakistan's overconfidence was also bolstered by modern American weaponry, including Patton tanks and Sabah jets, received through Cold War alliances. The limited Indian response in the April 1965 ran of Kutch skirmishes further fed the illusion that India would avoid full-scale war. Believing it could deliver a swift and decisive strike, Pakistan crafted a bold plan to infiltrate and liberate Kashmir by force. This overconfidence would prove disastrous as Pakistan's assumptions about both India and Kashmiri people turned out to be deeply flawed. Operation Gibraltar, Infiltration into Kashmir. In August 1965, Pakistan launched Operation Gibraltar, a covert mission to infiltrate Indian Kashmir with thousands of armed personnel. Around 7,000 Pakistani soldiers and irregulars crossed into Kashmir disguised as locals to incite rebellion and sabotage Indian control. Their goal was to destabilize the region, seize key areas, and trigger a popular uprising that would favor Pakistan. Infiltration routes included the vital Haji Pir Pass, offering strategic access through the Pir Panjal Mountains. Contrary to Pakistan's expectations, the Kashmiri population refused to support the infiltrators, and many locals informed Indian authorities. Indian forces responded swiftly, launching a counter-insurgency operation that isolated and eliminated most of the infiltrators by late August. Operation Gibraltar was a catastrophic failure, exposing Pakistan's miscalculations and setting the stage for a wider war. Failure of Operation Gibraltar and capture of Haji Pir. As Operation Gibraltar crumbled, Indian troops moved decisively to seal infiltration routes and eliminate threats. On 28 August 1965, Indian forces captured the strategically crucial Haji Pir Pass, cutting off a major infiltration corridor. The capture was a bold and symbolic victory, as the Haji Pir region had been a key base for Pakistani intruders. Pakistan's covert operation had not only failed to incite rebellion, but it united Kashmiris in defense of India's sovereignty. The embarrassment forced Pakistan to escalate, choosing to initiate Operation Grand Slam, a direct military assault on Jammu. This transition from covert war to open aggression marked Pakistan's formal entry into full-scale hostilities. India had, through sheer tactical brilliance and popular support, thwarted Pakistan's biggest gamble before the real war even began. Operation Grand Slam, Pakistan's armored thrust in Chhamb. After the failure of Operation Gibraltar, Pakistan launched Operation Grand Slam on 1st September 1965, a massive assault on Jammu. The objective was to capture Akhnur, a key town connecting Kashmir to Indian Punjab, and cut India's lifeline to the valley. Pakistan's 1st Armored Division and elite brigades attacked Indian positions in Chhamb Chaurian with overwhelming firepower. Indian forces, caught off guard, were initially forced to retreat under intense tank and artillery fire. The Indian Air Force was deployed swiftly, bombing advancing Pakistani columns and slowing their momentum. A crucial Pakistani blunder occurred when Major General Akhtar Malik was suddenly replaced by Major General Yahya Khan, delaying the advance. This delay allowed India to reinforce Akhnur and stabilize the front. Pakistan's most ambitious strike had been blunted. India's bold response, crossing the international border. To relieve pressure on Kashmir and counter Pakistan's aggression, India launched a bold counter-offensive on 6 September 1965. Indian forces crossed the international border into Lahore sector, opening a second front and surprising Pakistan completely. The 15th Infantry Division, led by Major General Niranjan Prasad, advanced rapidly toward Lahore, capturing outposts en route. By evening, Indian troops reached the Ichogil Canal just a few miles from Lahore, shaking Pakistan's strategic depth. This move showcased India's resolve to carry the war into enemy territory and not just defend its own. Prime Minister Lal Bahadur Shastri's leadership and the army's swift action won praise across India. Pakistan now had to divert troops from Kashmir to defend Lahore, a strategic success for India's High Command. Battle for Lahore begins. Advance to the Ichogil Canal. India's advance toward Lahore marked a critical phase in war, with fierce fighting erupting across the sector. The 3 Jat Regiment captured Dograi near the Ichogil Canal after intense combat, reaching the eastern outskirts of Lahore. For a moment, Indian soldiers could see the skyline of Lahore, a historic psychological breakthrough. Simultaneously, 4 Sikh regiment seized the village of Burki, dismantling Pakistani defenses and capturing large enemy supply dumps. These victories disrupted Pakistan's forward positions, forcing their forces behind the canal for city's defense. However, Indian High Command briefly halted the advance, fearing overstretch, and ordered a tactical withdrawal from Dograi. Later, 3 Jat reclaimed Dograi with a second assault, proving India's resilience and the regiment's unmatched determination. Heroic battles, Dograi and Burki near Lahore. Dograi and Burki became iconic symbols of Indian valor on the Lahore front, both captured after brutal hand-to-hand combat. The 3 Jat Regiment, under Lieutenant Colonel Desmond Head, launched a second assault on Dograi on 21st September after earlier withdrawal. Despite facing entrenched defenses and heavy fire, Indian troops prevailed, securing the village in close quarter battle. To the south, the Burki offensive, led by 4th Sikh Regiment, neutralized a major Pakistani supply base by 11th September. Indian forces seized large quantities of ammunition, cutting off Lahore's outer defense logistics. These twin battles proved India's superior infantry tactics and courage under fire, dealing major psychological blows to Pakistan. Dograi's capture brought Indian soldiers within striking distance of Lahore city, a strategic and symbolic milestone. Pakistan's counter-attack at Khem Karan, prelude to Asal Uttar. In response to India's thrust toward Lahore, Pakistan launched a powerful counter-offensive at Khem Karan in Indian Punjab. On 8 September, Pakistan's elite 1st Armored Division, boasting American Patton tanks, aimed to break through Indian lines. Their goal was to reach Beas River and cut supply chains and force a withdrawal from Lahore and Sialkot. The Pakistani tank column advanced aggressively, overwhelming initial Indian defenses and reaching deep into Indian territory. However, Indian commanders had a plan, deliberately retreating to set a trap in the marshy sugarcane fields of Asal Uttar. Flooded terrain and camouflaged Indian anti-tank units were waiting for the advancing Pattons. Pakistan's pride in its armored superiority was about to be shattered in one of India's greatest battlefield triumphs. Battle of Asal Uttar, India's strategic trap. The Battle of Asal Uttar became the turning point of the 1965 war and one of India's greatest battlefield victories. Indian commanders, led by Major General Gurbaksh Singh, created a brilliant trap in the sugarcane fields of Asal Uttar near Khemkaran. They allowed Pakistan's 1st Armored Division to advance into the low-lying waterlogged terrain deliberately flooded by Indian engineers. Heavy Patton tanks became stuck in the marshy ground, unable to maneuver or retreat quickly. Indian troops, camouflaged in tall sugarcane, launched a devastating anti-tank ambush using recoilless rifles and small arms. Pakistan's tanks were picked off at point-blank range, many without firing a single shot in response. Asal Uttar showcased India's tactical genius, using terrain, deception, and courage to defend a superior armored force. Company Quartermaster Habildar Abdul Hamid, the tank destroyer. One of the greatest heroes of the 1965 war was Company Quartermaster Habildar Abdul Hamid of the 4 Grenadiers. Armed with a jeep-mounted 106 recoilless gun, he became a one-man nightmare for Pakistan's advancing Pattons. On 10th September, he flanked Pakistani tanks from the sugarcane fields, firing at close range and constantly shifting position. In a single day, Abdul Hamid destroyed 4 enemy tanks and damaged a 5th, all while under intense fire. His precision and fearlessness caused panic among Pakistani tank crews and broke their momentum. Eventually, he was spotted and killed in action, but not before turning the tide in India's favor. Abdul Hamid was posthumously awarded the Paramveer Chakra, India's highest gallantry award. His bravery remains legendary. Patton Nagar, crushing defeat of Pakistan at Asal Uttar. By 10th September, the Battle of Asal Uttar had ended in a resounding Indian victory, halting Pakistan's major offensive. Over 97 Pakistani tanks, mostly Pattons, were destroyed or captured. Many left smoldering in muddy fields. The battlefield was so littered with tank wrecks that it was nicknamed Patton Nagar, Patton Town, by Indian troops. Pakistan's 1st Armored Division suffered near total defeat, losing its operational strength in a matter of days. India's anti-tank ambushes and clever use of terrain rewrote the rules of armored warfare in the subcontinent. The victory at Asal Uttar shifted the momentum of the war, boosting Indian morale and crippling Pakistan's offensive plans. It proved that bravery, ingenuity, and terrain knowledge could overcome even the most technologically advanced enemy. The Sialkot sector, India's northern push. While India held its ground in Punjab, the Sialkot sector became another major front, marked by tank battles of massive scale. Indian forces aimed to relieve pressure in Kashmir by threatening Sialkot, a vital Pakistani city and supply hub. The 1st Armored Division and Poona Horse Regiment advanced swiftly, facing stiff Pakistani resistance. Beginning on 8 September, Indian Centurion tanks clashed with Pakistani Pattons in open fields. Tanks rumbled across villages and farmlands. The scale of the fighting resembled World War II, involving up to 600 tanks in total. Despite intense resistance, Indian troops made steady gains, capturing villages and pushing towards the Chawinda rail junction. The Sialkot campaign pinned down large Pakistani forces, weakening their presence in other regions. Lieutenant Colonel Tarapur and the Battle of Philora. The Battle of Philora, 11 to 13 September, was a landmark tank engagement in Sialkot sector. Lieutenant Colonel Ardesit Tarapur, commanding the Poona Horse, led from the front despite being wounded early in battle. Under his leadership, Indian tanks destroyed large number of enemy Pattons while advancing through Philora, Wazirwali and Butur Dograndi. Tarapur refused evacuation, continuing to command until his tank was finally hit on 16 September. By the end of this campaign, Poona Horse had destroyed about 60 enemy tanks, losing only 9 of its own. The victories opened the road to Chawinda and destabilized Pakistani defenses in northern Punjab. Tarapur was posthumously awarded the Paramveer Chakra, honoring his unmatched leadership and supreme sacrifice. Battle of Chawinda, largest tank battle since World War II. After Philora, Indian forces advanced towards Chawinda, near Sialkot, a critical railway and logistics junction. From 14 to 18 September, Indian and Pakistani tanks clashed in the largest tank battle since Kursk in 1943. Over 600 tanks were involved in total, Indian Centurions versus Pakistani Pattons in open brutal combat. Indian 1st Armored Division reached Chawinda's outskirts, but Pakistani reinforcements and terrain slowed further gains. The battle became a bloody stalemate, with both sides suffering heavy casualties and artillery pounding the area continuously. Despite fierce resistance, India held the strategic edge, controlling key villages and maintaining pressure on Sialkot. The ceasefire on 23rd September halted further advances. India had the upper hand but abided by diplomatic efforts for peace. Pakistan's false narrative and international reactions. Throughout the war, Pakistan projected a false narrative of victory and heroism to its domestic audience. State-controlled media claimed major wins despite battlefield setbacks and territorial losses to India. In reality, Pakistan lost about 3,800 soldiers, nearly 200 tanks, and key border areas like Haji and Philora, while India suffering its own losses, held more territory at ceasefire, about 720 square miles compared to Pakistan's 300. Internationally, the war alarmed the global community, especially the United States and Soviet Union, who feared escalation. Both superpowers pushed for restraint and ceasefire, leading to UN Security Council Resolution 211. The Western arms embargo hurt Pakistan more than India, revealing Islamabad's over-dependence on American military aid. UN ceasefire and the Tashkent Agreement. Under immense international pressure, a UN-mandated ceasefire was declared on 22nd-23rd September 1965. India had gained tactical advantages on multiple fronts but chose peace over escalation. The Tashkent Agreement was signed on 10th January 1966, mediated by Soviet Premier Alexei Kosygin. Indian PM Lal Bahadur Shastri and Pakistani President Ayub Khan agreed to withdraw to pre-war positions. India returned captured territory, including the Haji Pir Pass, despite public disappointment over the concession. The agreement did not resolve the Kashmir issue, leaving the conflict's root cause untouched. While restoring peace, Tashkent was widely seen in India as a diplomatic compromise despite military success. Public reaction and death of Lal Bahadur Shastri. The ceasefire was met with mixed emotions in India, relief at peace but frustration at the return of hard-won gains. Many felt India had not leveraged its battlefield advantage during the Tashkent talks. Just hours after signing the agreement, PM Lal Bahadur Shastri died suddenly in Tashkent on 11 January 1966. His death, officially from a heart attack, shocked the nation and remains a subject of speculation and reverence. Shastri's leadership during the war had inspired unity and confidence across India. His slogan, Jai Jawan Jai Kishan, became a national call to arms and spirit. His passing turned criticism into mourning. He was seen as a true patriot who led with humility and conviction. India's military lessons and the formation of BSF. The 1965 war exposed gaps in India's border security and military readiness, especially during initial infiltrations. One of the major outcomes was the creation of the Border Security Force (BSF) on 1st December 1965. BSF was tasked with guarding India's borders, preventing future infiltrations like Operation Gibraltar. The war also triggered reforms in intelligence, logistics, and armored warfare strategy. India accelerated self-reliance in defense production and diversified arms procurement, reducing reliance on Western suppliers. Lessons from tank warfare led to modernization, adopting new doctrines, and acquiring Soviet tanks and aircraft. The military emerged stronger and national morale soared. The war had reshaped India's strategic outlook forever. Strategic reforms and political impact on India and Pakistan. The 1965 war led India to reassess its defense policies, making reforms in command structure, training, and strategic doctrine. India drew closer to Soviet Union, initiating long-term defense partnerships that shaped future military capabilities. The war revealed the need for better logistics, war reserves, and border management, all addressed in following years. On the political front, India stood united. The leadership of Shastri brought national pride and confidence. In contrast, Pakistan plunged into political instability. Ayub Khan faced growing dissent over the war's failure. The Pakistani public, fate exaggerated claims, was stunned when the real outcomes emerged after the ceasefire. Pakistan's myth of victory began to crack, leading to internal unrest and eventual changes in leadership. Legacy of the 1965 War, Heroes and National Pride. The 1965 war created national heroes and a wave of patriotic pride across India. Company Quartermaster Havildar Abdul Hamid and Lieutenant Colonel Ardeshir Tarapur, both awarded the Paramveer Chakra, became legendary symbols of courage. Their extraordinary acts, destroying enemy tanks and leading from the front, are remembered and honored till this day. Indian soldiers fought with unmatched determination in places like Asal Uttar, Dograi, and Philora. The war eased the humiliation of 1962 and proved the Indian Army's ability to fight a modern full-scale war. Songs, memorials, and school textbooks immortalize the soldiers who defended the nation's honor. The phrase Jai Jawan, Jai Kishan became a rallying cry that united soldiers and citizens alike. Long-term impact on India's defense and foreign policy. Post 1965, India emphasized military modernization, intelligence reform, and self-reliance in defense manufacturing. The experience exposed the dangers of dependence on Western arms, prompting India to build ties with Russia. New strategies focused on rapid mobilization, better armored warfare planning, and enhanced border surveillance. The establishment of BSF and increased funding for armed forces reshaped India's defense preparedness. On the diplomatic front, India's global image improved as it was seen as a peace loving nation but also a strong nation. India adopted a firmer stand on Kashmir, making it clear that no amount of aggression would alter its position. The war also prepared India psychologically and militarily for the decisive victory it would secure in 1971. Conclusion: 1965, a war of courage, unity, and victory. The Indo-Pak War of 1965 was not just a military conflict, it was a testament to India's unity, courage, and spirit. Against aggression, India responded with boldness, defending Kashmir, entering Lahore, and defeating enemy armor. Every front, Lahore, Sialkot, Asal Uttar, told a story of Indian resilience and battlefield brilliance. Though the war ended in a ceasefire, India emerged stronger militarily, diplomatically, and emotionally. Our soldiers showed that patriotism is not in words, but in fearless action and ultimate sacrifice. The war left behind a legacy of valor, forged a generation of heroes, and reshaped India's future. 1965 will always be remembered as the year India stood tall, faced the storm, and walked away with its head held high. The Indo-Pak War of 1965 was not just a clash of armies, it was a test of India's soul, and in every sector, Every trench, every tank-ridden battlefield, our soldiers proved what it means to fight for dharma, for sovereignty, and for every citizen back home. Heroes like Abdul Hamid and Lieutenant Colonel Tarapur didn't just win battles, they own our eternal gratitude. Today, let us remember them not with silence but with a vow to cherish the freedom they fought for. This was not just a war of conquest, but of honor, unity, and resolve. Thank you for watching this special episode on Rig History Extended. If you felt this story mattered, let others know. Jai Hind.